Look, we all know my picks go into one of three categories: scary, horny, or sad.
I'm really scared for when you find the unholy trifecta.
Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
This week, we revisit our favorite queen of televangelism with the 2021 drama The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Before we try very hard to not reference meal buckets, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys.
It's time.
It's time.
This is like our Infinity War. This is where the Bible Boys verse finally comes together to defeat our one big bad enemy,
Ronald Reagan.
I was going to say, it'd have to be either Ronald Reagan or the Newsboys for it to be a full Infinity War, but it's pretty darn close.
I'm still hoping the Newsboys will get a nice enemies to lovers arc.
We can only hope. So listeners will remember last year we covered the original Eyes of Tammy Faye, which is a review, a docudrama about her life, but mostly a documentary if I remember correctly, right? There wasn't really any exaggeration or dramatization of her life. It was just kind of straight up like the footage that existed and interviews with her, and it was a good doc, don't get me wrong, but like this is a very different beast altogether, I think.
I think that what's important context that makes me think that they're actually not all that different is that it was meant to be the original documentary. I mean, it was narrated by RuPaul. It's meant to tell Tammy's story from Tammy's perspective. And at the time it came out, a lot of people criticized it for being one-sided. And the rebuttal to that was, well, we've heard Jim Bakker's side. We've heard all of these evangelical assholes and their perspectives and what they think about Tammy Faye. What we haven't heard is Tammy Faye's side. And I just love that we get to talk about this film. I love that we get to talk about Oscar winner Jessica Chastain, who, I just have to jump the gun a little here and say that she mentioned LGBTQ people, suicide rates, and, a cause that Tammy Faye herself championed pretty aggressively, especially for the world she operated in and the life that she lived. And on a smaller, less serious note, this won the Hair Makeup Costuming Award. And if you look at Jessica Chastain in this, I am a noted criticizer of prosthetics. Jessica Chastain looks incredible. She looks like Tammy Faye.
Oh yeah, it's unnerving sometimes.
Yeah.
Like they fucking knocked it out of the park.
And I think that this film, like, where it diverges is really interesting, and like the artistic liberties it takes is really interesting. And there are a couple of moments that I'll be like chiming in because I have takes on them. I think that like the story, as we've mentioned a lot about the real life Tammy Faye, the real life Jim Bakker. You can go back and watch our documentary or listen to our documentary episode if you really want to hear about the person. I think for the purposes of this episode, we're going to really be talking about the film and talking about the film's take. And I think that like comparing, contrasting that is helpful, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense to regurgitate the same story that we know.
Yeah, if you can't tell by listening to, I don't know how many episodes we've done at this point, a whole bunch, me and Michael really like talking about this fucking Bakker family.
We each have adopted a Bakker.
I don't want mine. I don't like my guy.
I love mine, and I'll defend her until my dying day.
My little guy sells slop in a bucket. I just find him fascinating and terrible.
Yeah, I mean, this documentary does a pretty good job of explaining the ways in which he is terrible. Although, I don't know, I felt like, you know, let's start at the beginning. We can get into it, but I had some interesting feelings about Mr. Garfield's performance and the way that he portrayed his character. But yeah, I mean, notably, right, this film shot starts with a very long shot of Jessica Chastain as Tammy Faye's like eyes, and where they have this conversation about how her makeup is, her everything is permanently lined, and like the makeup tech is like surprised that
Which
her.
that is like a direct one from one from the documentary about her.
Yeah, yep. And that's just a thing that she did, and I'm glad they included it. But yeah, we start with this shot of the eyes. It starts at this is in 1994. It starts at the end of the film, and then it goes back to her childhood. So Tammy Faye grew up in Minnesota, according to
Hmm.
Wikipedia. And we get this interesting shot. Again, this is a lot of like childhood stuff that I don't remember from the original doc, but we get her, having this conversation with her parents about how she, isn't allowed to go inside the church where her mom plays piano, because she is, her mom is divorced. And there's a really funny line where she's like, "Oh, you don't want them to see me because they'll think you're a harlot." And she says it in such a sincere and genuine way. It's like, oh, poor Tammy. Um, but basically, yeah, we get this shot of her like like she walks into the church, in defiance of her parents' orders, and like this preacher's like, "Oh, do you want to like feel the spirit?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." And she has a seizure basically, and we get another great line, which is she's peeing herself, praise God, which like does kind of set up the kind of household and community Tammy was raised in. But yeah, from that day she became very religious and spiritual. We see her go to North Central Bible College, where she meets Jim Baker. Right, the first shot is of her listening to him give this speech. And they really do a good job of setting up his character, because he says, like one of the first things he said is blessed be the poor. That doesn't sound too blessed to me. And it's like, okay, that's his character. Great. Awesome. We know what this guy's all about.
Yep.
It is one of those things that, like, I know I have not heard those exact words before, but I can hear 8 pastors I know saying it.
Yeah.
Like,
They have this, I don't know how you all felt about this scene, but like where they just started like flirting in the middle of this this like lecture, or like he was like they're quoting from Song of Solomon, and he's like, "I will take hold of the palm tree and I'll take hold of the fruit," and everyone's like, "Oh, this is like they're just fucking like sexting right now in front of God and everyone," and it was a lot. But like it was very believable to me. I thought that Jessica Chastain played up like Faye's like not just naivete but like youthful enthusiasm very well in the scene.
it,
Yeah,
as
and
someone
some of
who,
that,
oh, go ahead.
like some of that flirtiness that Tammy Faye always seemed to have, like this charisma that like oozes out of her, where it's like you're literally quoting the Bible, but you could still pull with that. Like if I walked into a club and started talking like Song of Solomon, I'm a pretty like gregarious person. I'm not going home with anyone. Tammy Faye does that, and she's got the boys lined up around the block.
I don't know. I feel like that just might be Christianity's history with homophobia. I feel like, Michael, in the right context, you could pull with some choice Song of Solomon quotes. You're a very charismatic man.
I also want to point out that my loving girlfriend is always begging me to stop quoting the Bible books in order. She does not find it a fun little trick that I can do.
It's unfortunate. Well, we'll have to talk to her about her taste.
I try to put them in our ranking order too, but she didn't have any of that. Um, but I want to, like, as someone who went to church camp for 5 years too many, uh, there is some energy like that in like young, like teenage, Christian group where your brain's like, yeah, I'm really into Jesus, but all of your hormones are just screaming horny, horny, horny. And it comes out in weird ways, but I thought this was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And you can tell they do a good job of portraying that people who are both like very religious but also like extremely horny. This is a very horny drama. There's a lot of scenes of them like making out. Like I think right after this date scene, right? They go back and they're just like making out and they're like, "Oh, we shouldn't, but we should," and it's like very sexy. But like they have this date in the middle of this like field. They have this picnic, right? And I learned something that I didn't learn before, which is that Jim Baker hit a child with his car. Apparently,
Yeah.
It was also news to me.
I can't believe none of us knew this.
This is like our 4th podcast on the guy.
Wait until the 5th one. We're really gonna learn some shit.
But yeah, apparently, like he one day he hit a child with his car, and he prayed very hard that the child would not die, and that if he prayed good enough, then he would devote his whole life to God, and you know he did. The child lived, so that's why he's at this Bible college. Anyway,
The Newsboys.
I wish that I wish there were newsboys in this doc. That would have done something for me in a strange way. But basically, yeah, like she takes him home. She's like, "Hey, we're married now," and she goes back to her home. And like, I didn't stress this enough, but like, she has a very like her mom features very prominently in this film. And like, we immediately like at first like you could tell like there was like a little bit of something weird, like almost like her mom was ashamed of her, in that first scene. But here you can definitely tell like her mom is like actively ashamed of her. It's like a whole deal, and like you know there's a whole like sequence where Jim Baker is like trying very hard to get you know his Tammy's mom to like him, and she's just like just like completely stonewalling him, and it's rough. Like you know there are moments where it's like, oh, I definitely feel for you know that person who is like trying very hard to be accepted by their spouse's family. And then of course Tammy cranks him off with some smoking bubbles or whatever.
In her parents' bathtub.
Yeah.
Look, we all know my picks go into one of 3 categories: scary, horny, or sad.
I'm really scared for when you find the unholy trifecta.
The Witch.
Yeah, that was a sad, scary, horny movie, Michael. You got me there.
What part of the witch was horny?
The Witch.
The what?
The Witch herself.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
remember.
no.
When she was like seducing the little brother and like was literally naked and like caressing herself slowly.
I don't remember that, but that's because I'm a good Christian boy.
We have to rewatch The Witch from the top.
I'd rewatch
Aaron
The Witch. That was a
looks
good
away
film.
Whenever there are adult scenes on the television.
Yeah, I just open up my Bible. So this is actually this jerk off scene is actually the birth of the puppets for some reason. Right, because she's like, there's this bottle that has like a little like rubber head on it that the soap that she used to jerk off Jim Baker was in. But like the next scene, like she's sewing a puppet out of this head. And she like has this like, it's not passive aggressive because she's doing it directly at her mom, but she's just like talking to the puppet and being like, you know, I'm very thankful even though my mom doesn't appreciate me. You know, I know she's doing it in her own way, and it's very funny. And you know, again, very very charming performance both by you know Jessica Chastain, but also just like it kind of shows like what kind of person Tammy Faye was.
See, back then they didn't have like really really good Pixar movies in order to get out your parental trauma. Puppets was all they had.
So true. Yeah, so what's his name? Jim reveals that he has acquired a car from the bank. And he's just like, yeah, no, they gave it to me for a loan. It was not a big deal at all. And I was like, oh, that is a stolen vehicle. This man is a thief. That didn't turn out to be the case, but it does come back eventually. The car gets repossessed. But that's how they meet Pat Robertson of the Christian Broadcasting Network. They're doing like this traveling show. Tammy and Jim are like going to preach to children, basically. You know, Tammy's using her puppets, and Jim's just a pretty good orator, so they're going out and doing the show, and they're like, I want to say, are they in Tennessee? When they lose the car, I don't remember, but
I think so.
basically they come to this place and they meet Pat Robertson of Christian Broadcasting Network, CBN. This is in 1964. But basically, they start praying really hard, and Pat Robertson rolls up and he's like, "Oh, hey, I saw you preaching like earlier this week. Do you want to come hang out with us at CBN?" And that's how they get their show. This is the 700 Club, right?
Yep.
Which is
And
wild. This is okay. Not to go on my I'm a Gen Z. The world is not super fun tirade, but like this is what I think. This is how I think all boomers got their jobs. Is they were on the side of the road, and then a CEO of like a company rolled by and went, "It looks like you've got gumption, kid. Here's 6-figure paying job."
I
And
like that you're speaking like it's the 1920s, and this is
I,
like a like a newspaper delivery boy in New York.
Yeah, like my parents were
listen,
both alive at this time.
Yeah.
I think everyone from the '60s talks like they sold newspapers during the Great Depression.
Young people just think that everything beat before the 1990s was the newsies.
I'm sick and tired of these boomers with their flappers and their speakeasies, and they go to the talkies.
Just so
Okay.
tired. I just want this Great Depression to end.
Oh,
That's actually still true for most of Gen Z. Um, but basically, they go into this interesting digression about like how this is where Jim Baker like really breaks bad. Like they kind of like hinted earlier, like okay, he's like kind of focused on material possessions or whatever. Like sure, that's it's not too bad early because we get a lot of like context with him like being really nice to Tammy and trying to fit in. But like once he gets this show right, there's like he is like taking notes on Robertson's camera presence.
Hmm.
Um, and like he's like really focused. He's like, oh, he's just like looking right. This is also like in the mid '60s, so like I want to say like what is it around the '50s where like a TV in every home like started to become a thing. Um,
Yeah, I think that's when the marketing strategy started happening. And I mean, remarkably successful. They ended up like doubling, tripling, quadrupling the percentages very fast.
Um, but basically, yeah, like this instance where like he is studying camera techniques and presence is very interesting to me because it's like, oh yeah, they didn't like have schools for that just yet. Like being a trained like having a trained TV presence is probably not a thing you could really study. So I found that was very interesting. But yeah, we start to see Baker's obsession with like getting famous. And he goes onto the 700 Club, and like we start seeing how they're like really successful, and how their show kind of owns, and Tammy gets some new dolls, and like everything's kind of great. But basically like we see Baker's obsession with getting his message out. And there's actually I hate this about myself, but like we see this moment where like Tammy, it's obvious that she reveals that she's pregnant, right? And she's like hinting towards that, but like she reveals it to Jim on live TV. And that moment really affected me. I was just like, oh, that's so nice. Because like he was so, Baker was like so distracted by like just wanting to get on TV, but Tammy was just like, I have a really important thing I want to tell you. And because like it was on TV, like right, that's another theme of this docudrama is like revealing important bits of their personal life on live television. And like it is both like very sweet because I'm just like, oh, it must be so nice to realize you're going to become a father for the first time, but also just like, oh, Jim Baker's a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it speaks a lot to Tammy because this could have been a scene where she was very sad or distraught about it, but it seems so much more straightforward than that in her way of thinking is, oh, my husband's really into this show that we've gotten that's been very successful. I think it would be special to tell him in this way, and I'm just going to do it. And it's very like there is a through line and a like frankness into how Tammy Faye operated that I feel like Jessica Chastain captured really well and this film captured really well because yeah, that tracks for the Tammy Faye that we know and love.
I
100.
There's something we've talked a lot about, like what really worked well and what didn't. Can I just talk for a second about the thing that hit me like a 2x4 when I was looking in the opposite direction? The Jerry Falwell casting. Um, Vincent D'onofrio is a wonderful actor, and I think like adds so much gravitas to any fucking scene he's in, and just like can chew scenery like no one's business. That's fucking Kingpin, and Daredevil's gonna come get him. So does I? That's all I could think the entire fucking time. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, you do crimes in New York City, sir.
Expanding his empire to the south.
Oh my god.
Honestly,
The Devil of Hell's Kitchen, Jerry Falwell, it's all connected.
it is all connected.
But yeah, like, so we get Falwell's character introduction because they go to Pat Robertson's house. This is like after their baby is born, and like Tammy's just like, oh, we paid for this, like, because he has this huge mansion with like a swimming pool, and there's like this big, like war council of all the like important evangelical broadcasters there, and that's where they meet Falwell. But like there's this tension where they're like, oh, this person like definitely is ripping us off because like we know how popular our show is, and like we're not seeing any of the profits from it. So there's this discrepancy. They're already pretty mad at Pat Robertson, and there's this great scene where like Tammy is trying to find a place to sit, and she's like carrying the baby, and she's like, oh, this sucks, I can't, I don't know any of these women, but like I'm stuck carrying this baby, and it looks like all the men over there are having like this important conversation. So she just kind of like rolls up over to them and drops the baby in Baker's lap, and she just pulls up a chair, and she's just like, hey, what's up, Jerry? He's like, just call me Reverend Falwell. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that tracks.
This scene owned. I fucking love
Yeah.
this scene.
So this scene, I felt, and like I don't feel this a lot with Tammy Faye. Like I love her, but I don't always feel a connection of seeing myself in her. This is a scene where I see a lot of myself in Tammy because, if you are a bubbly, effervescent personality, people don't take you very seriously. So what you do is you call them by their first name and then you talk about an issue with like remarkable depth but clarity as well. Like she just like sits down and goes, "So what if we were just cool with gay people and stuck to like, talking about loving each other rather than politics?" And all of these religious right people, you just see their brains melt.
What's the exact line? Like, yeah, you got yourself a firecracker there, Jim.
Yeah.
Which is
Like she
boomer
doesn't
for
back
I hate your
down.
wife.
Yeah. And I love it because she doesn't back down. She's not like, no, I'm gonna be deferential and quiet, like what you expect your wives to be. Like, I have a literal seat at this table, and I'm gonna tell you what I think, and I don't get why you're homophobic. And that really feels like that was Tammy's whole thing. Is she's like, I've just never understood homophobia, so I think everyone who is engaging in it is being stupid.
Yeah, I think that you kind of nailed something there, Michael. Of her entire character arc is not like, no, I'm cool with gay people for this reason. It's, I don't, why do we, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Can someone please explain the whole homophobia thing? And then they do, and she goes, no, I don't really, I don't know. That doesn't make sense.
Right,
Two
there's this
plus two
thing
doesn't
that
equal seven.
like Falwell's talking about like the liberal feminist homosexual agenda, and he's like, we got to protect America from them, and she's like, America's for them too. And she's just like, I think of these people as other human beings that I love, and that's just like a very clear, concise way of laying out her ideology, and she continues to follow that through the entire film, and that's great.
Listen, I can name very quickly all the things I hate about gay people. Very easy, very quick. It's very good to see Tammy Faye out there, just immediately being like, I don't. No, none of those arguments make any sense. I can convince her though. I can convince Tammy Faye to dislike gay people.
I don't think you could.
I can't wait for this one to be someone's first listen and be like, Jesus Christ, that one guy is like super homophobic.
That's kind of
His
your whole
brother
deal, though.
gay?
Yeah.
But yeah, basically they realized that they could probably do better than CBN, and they found Praise the Lord Network, PTL, in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they start, they start taking off. We do get like the interview about like the penile pump, where she is like talking with this like penis prosthetic, and like that's very interesting. Like they immediately start out by showing how like Tammy was never like a part of this like very conservative set of broadcasters. Like PTL was very different from these other networks. But unfortunately, things start going badly because of the way that Jim Baker is.
Jim's entire thing.
Like, there's this point. I think this is the point where she like invites her mom up, right? And like tries to get her to wear this cool coat. And like her mom's just like, I don't want this coat. I want to talk about the fact that your husband is diverting funds from your organization. And she's just like, oh, you can't believe everything you read in the media. And I thought that was pretty good because it does show that Tammy like did have a certain degree of naivete and a certain degree of like being left out of what was actually going on. So like, I think that we're all going to be coming down pretty, high on Tammy Faye, but I also am glad that there's a, there is some, I don't want to say failings, but like she's not perfect. She didn't see the things that were going on in PTL and with her husband. But yeah, basically we like this comes to not a climax, right? Not yet, but like there's this fight, right, with her and Jim, and he's just like, the phone is ringing in this room that they're in, and she's just like very does not understand. She's like, hey Jim, we haven't had sex in a while, and I thought we were gonna have another kid. And he's just like, I need you to not get in my way. And she's like, I just want to talk. And he's like, can you talk to God? And it's like really, really revealing Baker's character here. Just like nightmare person.
Truly a nightmare person.
I think we've all worked for people that have some of that Jim Baker energy of just, anything to climb up one rung on the ladder. Whether that is like, you have to be an absolute dickbag to your wife or like doing shady stuff with your company that already by definition is a little shady. So like, I don't know. He frustrates me so much, and I think you really have to give it to Andrew Garfield for, I don't know, he's been in so many of our fucking movies. From going to Japan to going to Japan again, but in World War II, to now being Jim Baker. Like, he fucking crushed this role. Because he very believable. Oh, Aaron looks confused.
No, you're right. It's just I didn't realize how much Mr. Garfield featured on this program.
Yeah,
just wait until we pick Spider-Man.
God, Jesus allegories in it, I think.
Yeah. Basically, we get to this part where like he brings Tammy in front of the camera, and he gives like this very solemn speech about how like they're being attacked by the liberal media, not the liberal media, just the media in general that are like they're making up lies about them. And he asks people to double their pledge right now in order to fight back against these allegations. And like his like blatant appeals for money are just so gross, and they continue to get grosser throughout this film. But like already it's very icky, and it's just like bad.
This is a great time to bring up the allegations that have been put forth towards the Bible Boys are just a liberal lie. The CNNs, the NBCs, they want you to believe the lies against this company, that I'm funneling the money away from this company, away from my two co-hosts. That's absolute horseshit. So we do need you to go on to our Patreon that doesn't exist and just bump your membership up another tier. An extra $50 or $60 a day really goes a long way to pay our lawyers. So thank you guys.
Anyway, basically, right, we also get introduced to Gary, and let me try to find out. Let me get his last name.
Gary Paxton.
Gary Paxton. Thank you. famously produced the Monster Mash. But like he's this big music producer, and he starts working with Tammy, and right, he's already very genuine and is very impressed with her vocal talent. He's like, this could win a Grammy, right? When she does this like great recording of this gospel song. And like as we see Jim's neglect of Tammy, we also see right how he also like Gary is like very kind and loving towards her. And is this the part where like Tammy is going to like ask Baker Jim for something, and like she sees him like saying something mean about her makeup on set, and like she just like watches as he has fun with like these assistants and like this other guy.
I love how you just put that because that is Aaron's equivalent of the gal pals being gals. These boys are just like having some good
Well,
old
no,
boy
I didn't
fun.
want to fucking. I want to make sure that we're talking about it because like it's very heavily implied that they fucked. Like right at the very end of the movie, they're like, oh yeah, you know, there's definitely some homosexual allegations going on with Jim Baker, but like the camera does a very slow pan into Jim Baker and this other man like tickling each other. And it's like, okay, yeah, so there's clearly something going on here.
Yeah, I this was like a scene where I was kind of surprised actually. So I have a rule for all of our films that we watch, the ones that I haven't seen already. I go in blind. I go in not reading reviews. I do all of that research after the fact because I just think it keeps me a little fresher. So my jaw actually dropped open like, oh, we're gonna go ahead and we're talking about it. Cool. All right. And in that moment, I knew that we were gonna have the Jessica Hahn talk as well. Like I just knew. I was like, okay, we're not pulling any punches because yeah, the camera pans to this like very slow scene and Tammy sees it going on and you know, she responds by having this like flirtation slash going up to the line of basically like grinding super pregnant on top of Paxton and having her water break on him.
So I want to talk about this because like this didn't happen, right?
So in real life, Tammy says she never had an affair. Gary says they never had an affair. Gary's wife said at the very least Tammy was in love with Gary.
Hmm.
We don't know. This is likely a fictionalized portrayal of this like flirtation ship. This is honestly what this catches me as is it was probably an emotional affair, right? If you are one that subscribes to that, there was just a level of intimacy that was between these two, staying up all night recording. This is something we've heard of 1,000 times where you'll have a singer and a producer who just get this closeness and intimacy that most people can't understand because you're working together so closely. I also think he was giving her validation that Jim was not. And so, while I don't think maybe this exact moment happened, right? Like, I doubt Tammy's water broke on top of Gary Paxton. I think that there were probably many a moments that, like, walked up to the line of having an affair. And did they cross? Who knows?
Real rough for Miss Paxton, if she is still alive for this movie. Just could not be a fun watch.
Yeah, that's a toughie. But you know, I'm surprised to hear that. I didn't, you know, I think you're probably right, Michael, that it was much more like an emotional affair. I can't imagine that anybody who is married to Jim Baker was having any of their needs satisfied. So I really like the contrast they draw between how Baker has grown distant and, you know, is clearly, you know, hanging out with these assistants and, like, you know, making fun of Tammy's makeup and, like, you know, it's heavily implied that he's sleeping with his accountant and you know, right, we see all that and we contrast this to the one person who is actually giving Tammy validation and you know, saying like, hey, you could be, you have a special gift and you're a special person. For the film, it makes sense. I think that's a strange choice to do in a dramatization. But I see why you do that. If you're telling a story, you want to make it interesting. But yeah, like there's this big scene where the next baby is born, and Gary is like in the like delivery room with Tammy, and like Andrew Garfield walks in and he's like, I understand that Gary brought you to the hospital. And he's like all upset, and they have a big fight, and Gary is like, don't let him do this, Tammy. But Tammy like breaks down and says she's sorry. Gary just dips. He's like, whatever, bye. And right, again, this is not a thing that happened in real life, but like, Jim uses this moment as a way to get more money. He's like, you have to confess your sins to our audience, which is like pretty brutal. And this is like kind of where Tammy's drug abuse problems come down. She they start getting her on Ativan, she starts like having this dependence on medication, which is unfortunate. We get to the bar. There's a very interesting scene where they're like planning this water park for their PTL
Heritage USA, baby.
Yes, Heritage USA.
No, I think like we've talked a lot about Heritage USA, but I will never get over the fact that the Heritage USA sounds like the plot to like a 2000s Disney cartoon. Like there's an episode where one of the characters loses a lot of money because they decided to make a theme park, but that's what gets Baker, and it will never stop amazing me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a tendency of rich people to like be like, "Hey, I've been doing this one thing for a while and it's been going pretty well. What if I did a completely different thing that is so much more logistically complicated, and see how that goes?" And it like ultimately like, shoots them in the foot. I guess I'm thinking about basically like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos with their, myriad
Let's go to Mars.
Yeah, like, the Mars thing in particular, but also like Bezos like trying to open up like weird Amazon physical bookstores, and like I guess Whole Foods isn't like dying, but like I have never voluntarily set foot into Whole Foods. So like I don't know. I guess Whole Foods is still going on. I guess that's a thing. But like I do feel like this is rich people get ambitious, and they're like, what if I've been successful so far, why don't I try to be successful at something I have no business doing? And then they it gets them in the end.
I can only
Okay, but you brought this up, and now I have to follow through. This like Jeff Bezos and like Amazon deciding to make bookstores is the equivalent of Netflix going, okay, hear me out. What if there was a physical location that you walked into where you yourself could rent movies and TV shows and then had to come back and pay us for them in order to get your next one? What about that?
Yeah, like libraries, but worse. Yeah.
Right, like like this is basically if Jim Baker created the idea for a church. Like it's like that's been done, and also you're trying to put it out of business, my dude.
I am also extraordinarily upset that Jim Baker thought that he could put himself in the like echelon, the S tier of moving from one thing to theme parks, right alongside Dolly Parton and Walt Disney. Like those are the only two that have ever made that leap. Dollywood, I went there once when I was 12. It holds up.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, like we get this scene when he's like talking to this developer, and like he's about to lose the developer because he's like the developer's like, "Oh, you're a bad businessman. Like I don't trust you at all." But like Tammy is still helping him, and like uses her influence to like she does this like great quote and says like we need people of God to help us build Heritage USA, and like convinces his developer. And this of course sends Baker into a rage, and he's just like, you cheated on me, I'm an important man, Tammy Faye is the thing he says. And I love that bit because like he is wearing this like fucking garish like 70s outfit, and he looks like a little like lord that you would see on like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like somebody who's like very rich and doesn't know how to what to do with their money. But like it just like it made him seem so small, and I really liked that because I don't like Jim Baker, I guess.
I
But
don't
like
think that's a hot take there, Aaron.
yeah, not really, but like there's a very fun bit where like Baker is like explaining all this to Jerry Falwell, and he's like, oh, and we're gonna have a Coliseum and it's gonna be great. And Jerry Falwell's like, Jim, why the fuck would we have a Coliseum? We tell people that Christians got eaten by lions in those, right? And he's like, but like we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that here, you see. And Jerry Falwell, this was like just like completely just like so disgusted, but also at the same time is like so jealous of Baker because like they have this conversation about like how many people their satellite network reaches, and like Falwell's like, yeah, we reach like 5 million people or like 3 million people, and Baker's like, oh yeah, we're lucky to reach 20 million people, you fucking dweeb, you absolute narc. Just like so much more successful than him. And Falwell's just like, I can't believe I'm being outdone by this like low rent Nero over here.
It was. I did love that because it was fun to watch like a YouTuber feud back in the day, because that's what they had pretty much. If this happened today, they would be boxing, which I would pay infinite money to watch Jim Baker fight Jerry Falwell in a boxing match.
I'd sell my car. Yeah, 100%.
We have the rumble in the temple.
Oh my lord. But like at the same time, this is also, we get this scene where she's doing this interview with an AIDS patient, and like Falwell's like, I can't believe you're inviting these people on, and he's like so disgusted. And then also, Tammy's very upset, and she's like, oh, or like she's not upset, but she's walking back after the interview and speaking to some of the people who run the phones, and she's like, oh, like one of the phone operators is very upset, and she's like, oh, well, don't let those people, they say some nasty things, but don't let them get to you. And she's like, no, this was different. This was, this is a person that we call the Shrieker, right? And they talk about how like every so often somebody will call in and be like, Jim Baker assaulted me, and I can't believe you're supporting this, and then like all these accusations, and it's pretty soon after that it comes out that this is Jessica Hahn, and like these allegations are extremely true, and Tammy is just like devastated by it because she's like, I can't believe that this happened, and that it's this is like this is an incredible argument when she comes and confronts him with it, because she says this line that's like, I'm so sick from my faith in you, and he responds, you're a bottomless pit and you keep asking me for more, in that like annoying Betty Boop voice. And she just like takes that for a second. She's like, I thought you liked Betty Boop, and it's just like, wow, that it's a really good scene.
It's such a good scene. Like, the two of them choreographed fighting is something that I didn't know I needed to see. But, like, if Jessica Chastain and Andrew Garfield just want to, like, post videos of them choreographed fighting, like, different movie scenes, I would just watch that. I would never watch television again, and I'd just watch that.
We have a podcast to do, but I'm going to dig in on this for a second because I'm so curious about what Michael just said. Now, do you mean you want them to act out as other actors in other scenes, or do you want to see them as these two characters acting out other scenes together?
Well, both. I didn't think of the second as an option, but I was meeting the first. But now that I know the second is an option, I want both.
So, like, we could take... I don't even know what movie it is, but where Adam Driver is yelling.
Oh, Marriage Story. Yeah,
Yeah,
Marriage Story. I would watch the two of them in Marriage Story.
oh man, and that would be like almost like a spiritual successor to Silence too.
So true. Um, Basically, you kind of know how this sort of all plays out from here, right? Baker enlists the help of Falwell to make this all go away. Falwell just fucking steals their organization.
From the top rope.
Yeah, just completely slam dunks them into the ground. I forgot about this when I watched this, and I was like, oh yeah, he did a really despicable thing, didn't he? Which is where like she like writes out all the stuff that they were her salary and Jim's salary and all the things that they were getting, because he's like, oh, I'll make sure that when you retire you'll get all these things, and he goes and reads that on the air, and it's just like, what a despicable little shit. Like he's such a bastard. I can't believe that man drew breath on the same planet as me.
It is one of those
There is a hell.
This entire movie, watching Jerry and Jim go at it, it did kind of feel like King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, it'd be best for the world if they both just got each other, Like, is there a universe where they use all of their energy fighting each other and gay people get to just vibe?
Yeah, because in that universe, Tammy Faye's like vision wins out. They're too distracted.
Tammy Faye rips both of their hearts out on live television. And
God, I wish.
Not even she, like, with a smile and a sweet voice, has them like carted off by her security, and we don't know what happens to them. None of us know. But you know what? No one asks any questions, because then instead of like worrying about abortion and homosexuality, Christians care about, I don't know, poverty and helping people.
Michael, you're like one or two persuasive sentences away from the beginning of a Tammy Faye themed cult. And I knew you would get there eventually. Like, I knew just you as my brother would eventually arrive there. I just wasn't expecting it to happen on air.
Yeah, next, what you guys don't see, because this is an audio, is that I have my mascara on, my waterproof mascara, and I have blue eyeshadow. So it is slowly happening.
It's like Jim Carrey's The Mask.
But basically, yeah, Jim goes to prison, and Tammy is just kind of like left by herself. They get divorced. She tries some stuff. She tries to pitch a Tammy's Terrific Teens to a TV network, and they're just like, Tammy, that's no, which is sad, but like what are you gonna do? And like the guy asks her like why are you doing this, and she's like, oh well, I love the camera. It's a person. It's someone to talk to. It's God's love for me. Which is like both sad and also like pretty insightful, and I think probably a fair assessment of what Tammy Faye's beliefs are. But then like at the very end of the film, she gets a call from Oral Roberts School of Divinity, and they ask her to sing at this festival of praise and redemption. She goes. Her mom dies, and her dad is there, and they like have a drink, and they kind of reconcile with the memory of their mother. And the film closes out on my favorite hymn, the Battle Hymn of the Republic, sung by Tammy Faye, and it's fucking good. And then they end with like a very funny framing of like what happened with the rest of them, including including the date of Jerry Falwell's death to this very upbeat music, which is very good.
This film definitely took a side on the Falwell versus Tammy Faye conflict.
I mean, how could
and
you
I
not
love
if
it.
if you're studying Tammy Faye? Like, what are you gonna do?
If you are a Falwell stan in 2022, the year of our Lord, like, what are you doing with your life? Running Liberty.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably.
the thing is watching your wife fuck other men.
Every time I read Falwell, I do think back to our great podcast episode where we just dunked on the Falwell family for 40 minutes.
It was beautiful.
And it was fun to watch a movie that did that too.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's all the major scenes. Did I Did my recap miss anything? Is there anything you wanted to zero in on?
No, all I have left are fun facts and then my review,
All right,
my
let's hit it.
rating. Um, yeah, so this movie actually it was remarkably true to like the documentary and to history. Um, so this is from the IMDb page. At the end credits, IMDb points out that they've glossed over where Jim is now and about his buckets, his silver solution, that basically the FDA and the FTC have issued a public warning that the silver solution was an unapproved drug and they violate federal law. Um, but this movie also hints a little bit at Mesner and Tammy Faye's relationship, right? Which would have started. They ended up getting together a year after she was divorced from Jim. So it would make sense that maybe they had a flirtationship as well. Um, Also, a fun fact from Michael, this might be the only person in history who married not one but two felons accused of scamming people, where I go, I truly believe that she did not know a thing about either. uh, so a fun fact is the interview with Steve Peters is taken almost verbatim. So I actually watched a clip that went semi-viral on Twitter in the lead up to the Oscars, where they showed the original clip versus Jessica Chastain. It's remarkable. And that I think that it just like speaks so much. And so the actual Steve Peters is alive.
Yeah, he's still kicking, right?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm so
So,
glad
and
that
it,
he got to watch Fault Will Die.
Every person who gets HIV should get to watch Jerry Falwell die, I think.
I think so. And so actually, so I don't think that anyone making the film knew this either, because Steve Peters didn't know this movie was being made except when Jim and Tammy Faye's son contacted him and was like, "Hey, they're making a film about my mom." And so he actually wrote them a letter, and like he was in correspondence with Searchlight Pictures about the film, and he is in the Where Are They Now credits. Uh,
That's
and
so. That's so insane that is how that all came about.
right,
It's really good.
I have just two more that I feel very, very strongly about. One's a mini one. So this is actually like a Jessica Chastain passion project. So she watched the documentary in 2000 and has been like dying to make this movie since 2012 and has been trying to like shop it out to different production companies because she herself was like, I want to tell Tammy Faye's story. So that brings me into all of the songs that we hear from Tammy Faye are actual recorded versions from Jessica Chastain. They are not using a different musician as they often do in these films. And then we have my favorite fun fact. So Jessica Chastain is a fellow Tammy Faye stan because she said that she felt very strongly about one particular misconception about Tammy Faye, about how Saturday Night Live, late night talk shows would always feature Tammy Faye crying, like, in portrayed by different actors with her mascara running very heavily. And Jessica Chastain said that she couldn't find a single image of Tammy Faye's mascara running. And that's because Tammy Faye only wore waterproof. And those are the details that you want, and that is why this woman won a fucking Oscar. Because you know that the director's like, hey, like, this scene you're crying, we've got to do. And Jessica Chastain was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. I spent 65 hours last week looking for images of Tammy Faye with her mascara running. There are none, and it's because she wore waterproof. I will also wear waterproof.
That's
There we
real
go.
dedication I've never felt towards any job I've ever had.
Dissertation level research. Well done, Miss Chastain.
Dr. Chastain.
Doctor, thank you. Yeah, shall we rate this film?
Yeah, we got to. I'm gonna give this one 2.5 failed theme parks.
I'm gonna give this Pope 98 Zephyrinus. I liked it, but it made me sad.
Well, wait, did that particular pope make you sad?
I don't know. I have no idea what this guy did, but he's middling. So
Michael, don't look through the don't you dare look past the curtain that Aaron has up with this new bit.
there are like 260 popes. I don't know what all of them did.
What kind of Catholic are you if you don't know all the popes?
An X one.
That's why Aaron got kicked out. He couldn't name them all in order.
Yeah, I failed the fucking name
The
the
Pope
Pope
exam.
sacrament. Yeah.
So I have to give this film 4 out of 5 tubes of waterproof mascara because the attention to detail was so stunning. The story of Tammy Faye, I think, is one that is surmised by her public persona. And I don't know, I think they did a wonderful job of handling her. And also, fuck all those evangelical boys.
Not literally though.
Tammy Faye already did that,
yes.
Unfortunately.
She did that for us.
At least 2 of them.
She fell on that particular sword.
Twice.
Yeah. Well, when we are not trying to encourage you to not have sex with evangelicals, where can people find us on the internet?
I am at Green History on Twitter. Also, Aaron and I, alongside Mortified Famous Layla, put out a new podcast called Simple and Green. If you are a fan of Kingdom Hearts and my dumb opinions, I highly recommend it.
So basically, if you listen to this podcast, you'll love that one.
If you listen to this and not that one, I don't know what you're doing.
I am always trying to convince people not to have sex with evangelical men, but you can find me doing that on Twitter at Michael's Diamonds.
You can find me on Twitter at AaronSXL, where I tweet about tabletop RPGs and also health policy. I also, because today's the 28th of March, it's Kingdom Hearts' birthday, I released a video about Interstitial, Our Hearts Intertwined, which is a Kingdom Hearts themed tabletop RPG, which our lovely Michael did play on an episode of Mortified with me and Layla. It was a great time. I probably do other stuff. Yeah, I do Mortified with Layla. That's at Mortified Pod. This week's episode was just Simple and Green because we had so much fun, and it's Kingdom Hearts' birthday. So, real Kingdom Hearts every week, but deservedly so, I think.
Sure.
You just wait. You are so there's so very much to learn, Josh. You got to keep going. Anyway, if hearing about Tammy Faye's waterproof mascara never running brings a tear to your eye, just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.